Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Astral interview. And here with me, I have Benyamin Shoham, and I'm very honored and pleased to be here interviewing him. Um, I haven't talked to him much, and I haven't gotten to know him much other than the little bit I learned from him in a presentation he did for Shlomo Shoham, his father, in one of his classes, intrigued me quite a bit. So here we are. And I'm going to ask Benjamin to now introduce himself a little bit and tell us a little bit about himself. Tell us a little bit about your personal life to begin with, your childhood, where you grew up, and what really are the roots of who you are.
Okay, so hello everyone. Hello, Cheryl. Thank you very much for having me here.
Pleasure.
It's really an honor. I grew up in a small village in Israel near Tel Aviv, in the center of the country. It was a religious, it is still a religious place. And I grew up in a religious family. My early childhood was much about just being in nature. I grew up on a big lot of land with many trees, many animals around all the time. And around the age when I was 10, we moved from the village for 1 year. When we came back, I only came back with my mother, and my father separated from us. And this began like a new phase in my life. Both my parents renounced religion after they got divorced, which is very interesting. How the breaking of the constructs affect one another, you know, the family construct and the social construct. They both ceased to be religious. And a few years later, I also stopped being religious, mainly due to my father encouraging me to open my life and open my mind. So he educated me in a very certain conservative way until a certain age. And then suddenly he changed, and his education changed, and I changed as well. And around the age of 14, I stopped being religious, and I started to get exposure from the New Age community. I mainly observed my father as he went through his liberation process. But that were the roots for the connection for me with the New Age community and the alternative community. I went for the army, and I was a programmer for a few years, and I worked in high tech.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit. Tell me a little bit about like why you chose to go to the army from your New Age community experiences and all that.
Oh, I didn't choose to go to the army. It's mandatory in Israel.
It's
Everyone
mandatory.
has to go.
I see. Okay.
Unless you make a lot of effort, you will not be released from the army.
Okay.
I was a smart boy. I had a low physical profile, so I was drafted to the offices in Tel Aviv. And then I went on for a programming course and served as a programmer for a few years. And after that, I worked in the high-tech industry for a few years as a programmer. And at one point, things started to crack. I don't know. I was not at ease anymore. I had to do something for my soul. I had to do something for my heart. And the high-tech industry was too harsh and too fast and too money-oriented. So I left my job, and I went on a trip to Australia for 6 months.
Nice.
And when I came back, And when I came back, I went to Chinese medicine school. And
What
that was my
Chinese
first
medicine school did you say?
Chinese medicine. Yes, yes,
Right.
yes. Chinese medicine school. That was my first formal education as a therapist in the alternative medicine.
So which Chinese medicine school did you go to?
It was called East West. It's not. It doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, it's too bad.
It was founded by the uh, person who I went for treatment. He's a friend of the family. My father introduced me to him, and he was treating me for a while. And then I asked, and he said, "Yes, there's a school. You can come. You can learn." He opened the door for me, and I thank him very much until this day for that. So I started living like a double life. You know, after I finished Chinese medicine school, I went straight back to the high-tech industry and got back my job. I wanted financial stability. I had the first child. I wanted to build a house, all this stuff. But in the afternoons, I also practiced Chinese medicine. I continued to learn. I learned healing and psychotherapy, a few courses. Then we moved up north, and I started to spend more time in the forest.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah,
I have a similar path. I'm IT as well, but I'm also interested in unconventional means of healing. So I'm doing a naturopathy course, I'm doing an emotional healing course. I do this Metaphysical Hub and interview people that are in that same, you know,
yeah,
path as well. So it's interesting. And of course, I'm an IT person. I do web design and now AI as well. So it's interesting how IT and alternative health seem to come together in your desire at some point.
yes, 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 yes. They fit well together like sky and earth.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Yeah,
I thought I was one of the few, but it's good to know that there's others out there as well. So tell
yeah.
me then, um, East West, the school you went to, tell me a little bit about that and your experience there.
Well, first of all, it was the first time I met like-minded people. I was delighted to sit in a class and talk about feelings and about the spirit and about the plants with other people. It was a really good experience. I learned a lot of information there, and I got a very good education at acupuncture. And I also learned Chinese herbalism. I
Nice.
studied maybe 300 different herbs and their properties and what they treat and how to prescribe them to people. But only years later, I realized I don't really know those plants. I never see them growing anywhere because they are Chinese herbs. And I don't know how they feel. I never saw them in their natural environment. And I
What do you mean
realized,
by I don't know how they feel? What were you exactly sensing at that point? You wanted to be organically connected to them, or you wanted to be osmosis connected to them? Like, what was
oh, I didn't know to say those words then, but I can tell you now that what I really wanted was to be spiritually connected to them.
interesting.
We never learned about the spirits of the plants in Chinese medicine school, which is a terrible mistake, in my opinion. We
Right.
learned a lot about the practical aspects of plants and herbs, but we didn't got instructions on how to develop a relationship with the plant. This
So
is something
when you say particle aspect, you're talking about the quantum physics aspect of the plants, or
no, practical aspects. How
Elaborate.
to prescribe them to people who has this and that
Oh,
condition.
practical aspects.
Practical aspects, yes, this is
Yeah.
what we learned in school.
Okay.
How to use them, how to prescribe them, how to combine them together, this kind of stuff.
So material aspects, very material.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
it.
the material aspects. But when I went to the forest here in Israel, and I sat with the plants and I hug the trees and I meditate in a natural environment, I got all kinds of very different impressions and information. And I realized that everything is alive, that everything has a spirit, and everything is connected.
Wow.
Um, yes, and my personal experience got much verified when I went and learned shamanism
Okay.
from a dear teacher here in Israel called Ayala Elisha. I spent 2 years going on a retreat each month with her on different energy spots in the country, and we learned a lot about the spirit world and the elements and how to communicate with the world, with the plants, with the animals. So if I left Chinese medicine school and I was proud to say, yeah, I know how to use 300 herbs, today I maybe know how to use 20 herbs or 30, not more than that.
Right.
But I
Right.
can tell you that I have a very personal relationship with each one of them. And I can ask the plant directly, do you want to treat this and that person? Should you, is it a right match? You know, beside the list of symptoms and indications.
So let me ask you this. Okay, this often comes up when you talk to someone who's logic based and like you use the word practical, right? They
Yeah.
insist that that the activity of practicality is more important, or not necessarily more important, but will give you more accurate result than, of course, the right brain information or the information that's more obscure or more spiritual. What would you say to that?
I would say that we live in a world which is a combination of matter and energy. Our life is a connection between earth and sky and heavens. All the life that exists come from this connection between heaven and earth. And no one of them is more important. They have different properties, they have different
Exactly. Okay.
way of working. And as soon as we lose any one of them, we are out of our harmony and out of our path.
Okay.
You cannot do only material science and leave the spirit world. You cannot do only spiritual work and leave the physical body.
Right.
You cannot do those things. You have to learn ways to combine those two energies together.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I still, you know, when I use herbs, it's a great example. I still go through the books and I see the list of symptoms I make sure that it is a good match to this person. But after I do all the practical material work of matching a herb to a person, I still ask the spirit what this person should get. Is this plant right? Is it a good match? Sometimes I get different results, you know, from the spirit than I get from the science.
Right.
I hear that the dosage should be different. I hear that another plant should be used. I hear other things, and I can't explain them, and it's definitely not scientific, but it's very influential part of our life, and we should not ignore it.
So tell me then, in that information that you receive, is that information that you receive lead to better results, or is the information that you receive complementary to the work that you're doing with your client, or is it completely off?
It's a tricky question because what is a result? You know, measurable results are mostly part of the material world. Spiritual world doesn't work like that.
No, I know.
Most of the influence you cannot measure. You
No.
don't know what is the result. You just do the things you are guided to do. And most of the time, when I do it, the responses I get are amazing. People say, wow, how do you know that? I get all kinds of information and people are amazed that I know it. When I instruct them to do work on the spiritual realm, or I do it for them, they say it is amazing. They say they feel it. They say it heals them. Is it just their, belief? Is it placebo? Is it real? You cannot tell.
We
You
don't
should
know. Right.
not be able to tell. Spirit is the mystery part of our being. And it's okay that you can tell. But for everyone who do spiritual work, there is some feeling, deep knowing
Right.
that is present inside me, that I can say, this is definitely the thing. This is definitely the way. This is definitely the action that should be taken. For me, it is an absolute truth as much as any scientific result.
Fair enough. Okay, so has there ever been a situation where you've gotten results and information from your scientific discovery, and then when you've got information from your spiritual, um, um, intuitive self, has there ever been a situation where what the intuitive self gave you was contradictory to? And if so, can you talk a little bit about that experience?
I can't remember a specific example about it. Yeah, I'm not sure what to say about it.
Has there
Whenever
been a
I
situation like that or not?
whenever I don't have a complete and whole solution to provide, something that is both practical and spiritual, and they are connected, I keep trying. I just try. I try other things. I will not provide a solution that I'm not completely satisfied with.
Okay, fair enough.
So I will just try something else. I will try different herbs. I will try different meditations. I will try different exercises. I will try something else.
So let me ask you this now. You've been helping people for how long? How many years would we say?
Oh, about 20 years.
About 20 years. Wow. So
Yeah.
over the 20 years, there must have been a exponential growth in your understanding of the herbs, the acupuncture, the um, connection you have to spirit, the scientific methods you've used. So talk a little bit about how that evolution took place and what were the things that affected that evolution.
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to thank all my teachers. I learned from every one of them, and I'm truly grateful for that. But it is true that the growth curve was not linear, but it was exponential.
Right.
And most of the inner work and spiritual development happened for me in the past 5 years. And it was a connection of a few things that happened to me. First of all, I moved to Klil. Klil is a village up north in Israel. And I found a community which I feel at home, and I found a land which I feel at home. And I immediately started spending a lot of time in nature. Sometimes days, sometimes weeks. I just stay in nature. I don't necessarily do anything. A lot of the time I do collect herbs. This is part of my work. I make incense. So
Oh,
a lot of
wow.
times I just collect herbs and resins in the forest. But many times I just sit there and I spend time and I walk in the forest and I talk to the trees and I talk to the spirits and I do my emotional work. Sometimes I cry, sometimes I shout, sometimes I just, fall on the ground and hug the ground. I feel most, how do you call it? Most myself when I'm in nature without any other person. And I do most of my spiritual work there and most of my emotional work there. And I started calling myself son of the forest and a messenger of Mother Earth, and it all came by in parallel to my shamanism education, which is very in the same spirit, in the same concepts. So until then, I practiced mostly what I was taught. What my teacher taught me and what my experience showed me. And I really, in the last few years, I really developed my inner authority.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I don't rely anymore on any other teacher to tell me what is true for me and what is not true, what should I do. I found a direct channel to nature and to Mother Earth, and I ask her and I get her answers every time I need to know what to do and where to go and how to treat myself and how to treat others. And it's a very empowering experience for me.
So would you say that has a lot to do with the fact that you're alone in nature? That your independence became more confident to you because you were alone in nature, and that many people call it, this idea of knowing. Many people refer to it as one of the spiritual gifts that we receive. Clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, and then of course there's claircognizance. So claircognizance is
Mm-hmm.
what they say is this knowingness. And so when you're all alone in nature and you're predominantly in nature, then I guess that becomes your reality in a sense, right?
Yes, yes. The being in
Physical
nature is one
reality.
aspect. Being alone in nature is another aspect. For me, it is very clear and very deep that as soon as another person enters my realm, something inside me tightens, and there is some mask I put on myself, social mask, and some criticism I hear inside myself that I should be right and should be like
Mhm.
that. And when I was able to drop that and to be truly authentic with myself, this is when my connection to the nature enhanced. And, I experienced many experiences that I'm just being one with nature I dissolve, and all my social constructs are gone, and I become much more the animal I am than the person I am. Yeah, so for me, it was really necessary to be alone in nature.
Because many of the
I guess,
prophets, Prophet Muhammad in the Islamic sense, Moses, many of them retreated into nature, and that's where they had their visitation from God. Even Jesus, he went into the wilderness for however many years as well, and you know, Noah used to go out into nature as well. And so many of these biblical, Islamic, other prophets, even prophets in, the Hindu faith, Ram, Krishna, etc., they too were in the wilderness a lot. So do you think this was what allowed them to open up to their knowingness of the divine, of the spirit? Do you think it was instrumental? Was it the key ingredient?
yes, I think so. I think that there is a very strong conflict between authenticity and social ability. Truly authentic people are often outcast. They are not accepted in society. In society, you have to act in very specific ways. And the movement that we make inside ourselves to hold ourselves socially among other people really disconnects us from the source, disconnects us from who we really are, disconnects us from the connection we have to everything around us.
Because we tend to put on a facade then when someone else is around.
The energy goes to another frequency. Like we have a social frequency which is very material. It's like a low survival frequency. We can act like that, we can't act like that. It holds us very well, and it is great. It really helps us survive. It helps us evolve in society. It is an amazing force, but it is a very different frequency from the one that allows us to connect to everything. Very different than the soul frequency. And we rarely able to hold both of them together. We are either going that way or going the other way.
Right. So when let's just go back to these individuals, these prophets of God, as they're called. I mean, the textbooks tell us they were made to be prophets of God. So this was a somebody sent as a messenger, not necessarily an individual who connected to God and became a messenger. Do you know what I'm getting at here? This idea
I'm
that
not sure I got you.
this idea that these individuals were born for that purpose, this idea that they were already preordained. Do you know what I'm getting?
Oh, yes, yes.
You get or was it that they were just individuals who lived on the face of the earth that somehow discovered their inner self, somehow discovered this connection, and somehow after the fact became these individuals? Do you know now what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I get it. And
what are your thoughts
I
on that?
think I think that dynasty and DNA has something to do with that. I'm not sure that a lot. You know, they got some traits from their ancestors,
Right.
but they all had a very special path in life.
Right.
Like Moses was grown, you know, not by his family.
Right.
How does it affect a young baby to be taken from his biological family and be grown by a foster home?
Right.
We all know that it affects people drastically.
Right.
He also spent a lot of time in nature when he became a shepherd.
Right.
So he had a lot of time for himself in the desert to connect with nature. He did it for years.
Right.
So I guess the life circumstances brought them to a place where they were able to start channeling, communicating with God, getting their prophecy, whatever it was.
Right.
There is also, here in Israel at least, some talk about that the prophets and the workers in the temple were using all kinds of plants for their spiritual work. Some of them were highly psychedelic, consciousness expanding. So there's even a recipe here in Israel that some people know that has similar effects to ayahuasca that they have in South America. And they say that the prophets were using something like that to get their visions, to get their information. And it is also known from the Bible that the prophets, they really didn't need their social facade.
Right.
They were special people. They were acknowledged as special people. No one expected them to behave like everyone else. They didn't need to carry this facade. They just, it happened to them when it happened to them. Suddenly, in the middle of the street, in the middle of the forest, wherever they were starting to get the information, and they stood there and
they shared it.
Said what they said, and everyone accepted it because they knew they were prophets. So they were really they weren't burdened by the forces of society.
Do you think they knew they were prophets? Do you think they knew they were prophets, or because of the way they were speaking, it actually resonated with something in themselves that they gravitated towards it?
I think that back in the days, it was more common for, it was acceptable. A lot of people acted in ways that were more connected to the spirit and less social. Like in many cultures, all the people that have mental conditions like autism and other kinds of, they were considered holy people. They were considered more close to the spirit because they didn't have the ability to socialize properly.
Right.
So we can see the tension between those two movements and how the prophets found themselves on one end of this rainbow.
Interesting. Whereas today, I guess we label them as insufficient or having an issue or whatever it is. We kind of put them in the category of where prophets were considered higher and wiser and etc. We put them in a category lower and less fortunate and less capable.
Yeah, we think they're
less, right? We do the opposite, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that affects what they bring out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we're suppressing
it. They bring out whatever they bring. They bring out whatever they bring. They don't have the barriers. It is up to us to listen to them, to hear them, to realize their abilities and strengths. I also wanted to mention that the guy who wrote the Zohar, the secret books of the Judaism.
The lights.
Yeah, so he did it by living 12 years in a cave.
Yes,
he used to eat 1 pound of carbs from Saturday to Saturday and drink water from the fountain and just sit there, and he wrote. He didn't write. He channeled everything, and his
Channeled, yeah.
son was with him. He wrote everything down,
Yeah, I
and
read
this is
that
how
a
we
long
got.
time ago in my 20s.
Yeah.
Read that
Oh,
long time ago.
it's getting dark here. Just 1 second. I'll light the lights.
Okay, no problem. It's funny, we were talking about the Zohar, the Book of Light, and then you decide to go turn on the light.
Turn on the lights. Yes, yes, yes. It was just the right hour.
Too funny. See, our
Yeah.
intuition, our being, somehow our words are all aligned. There's some kind of right, your words, your what's happening around you, what we're thinking, it's all somehow aligned. It's, if we pay attention, we become aware of these things, right? We pay attention, then we're getting hints all the time, like from around us, from within us.
Yeah, definitely. What people call coincidences, I stopped being surprised by them a few years ago.
Yeah,
It
of
happens to
course.
me all the time. Everything is synchronized.
Yeah.
And if at one point I think that something is not synchronized well, it's a great sign for me to realize that I got disconnected and to get
Right.
connected again.
Yes, yes.
Because everything is synchronized.
Yes, I
whether
agree.
I see it or not.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. Do you think you started noticing the synchronicities more when you went into nature and started spending time in nature, or meditating and you started meditating more? Like synchronicities are happening around us whether we're aware of them or not, right? So when did you start noticing them? When you silenced yourself, right?
Yeah, I gave the path of my life. I forgot to mention I had 1 year. I was doing a lot of vipassana meditation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I sat like during the year, maybe 2 or 3 months overall, sitting silently in a room, observing my sensations, my emotions, and my thoughts.
Right.
And this made a drastic change on my ability to perceive the world, to connect with the spirit. I got very, very relaxed and anchored within myself. I was not troubled so easily anymore. And I think this was the time that I start seeing a lot of synchronicity around me.
Okay. Yeah, with
Yeah.
many of the people I interview, it usually turns out to be that part of us, with the when we're silent, when we're focused inward, when we're in nature, then all these things fall in place. As soon as we get out of there and we go into the, as you would call society, or I would call society, and start intermingling with a lot of people and a lot of external environment, then that kind of tends to shut down.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I today actually I have very little of this interaction with the world. Mostly when I go out to sell my incense, and I do it in like festivals and fairs and stuff like that, and I meet a lot of people, and it's a lot of noise and everything. But most of my days, I live in the village. I see very, very few people. I move very slowly. I have a very slow pace. I need to move very slowly. I need to sleep well at night. And I can do that, and I really stay very well connected most of the time. And
Right.
even when I go to the festivals and the fairs, I still stay very centered and connected, because it's
Right.
not
ours.
I don't know. It's like really an anchor inside myself that goes and goes and goes. I feel very centered, not shaken easily.
Right. So where you live right now, you live with you and your family, but it seems like it's, off the grid kind of place.
Definitely off the grid kind of place here.
Oh,
We
wow.
have
Oh my God. Look at that.
yeah.
Very
It's now
definitely off.
sunset. sunset time, and this is the view out of the house I'm in. It's a friend's house with a good internet connection. In my house, I don't have good reception.
Right.
So, but yeah, the house is it's an off-grid place actually, one of the few in Israel.
Yes.
And yeah, I really love it. A lot of space, a lot of nature. I have wild boars coming to my garden at night.
I have a space like that too, but it's kind of far from me. It's like, you know, 9 hour flight away from me or something like that. No, not quite. Maybe a 5 hour flight away from me or 5 day drive away from me. So I don't
Okay.
exactly get to go there that often, but I have a space like that
Yeah.
too, which yeah, I agree. When I experience that space of such freeness and such, it was so silent just being there, it's so silent, let alone anything else. Like nothing affects you, right? When you're that when you're in that much nature or that much wilderness.
I don't know. I might say that everything affects you,
Oh
and
yeah,
you
that's true.
learn to
That's one way.
live as an open system. Because the way that nature affects me, you know, sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold, sometimes the insects sting me, sometimes things happen, there's wind, everything happens all the time. But there is something very harmonious in the way that nature affects me, which is less harmonious when I go to the city.
You're right. Well, we need to, I guess, create a balance between the two, right? Because we have to be able to
Yeah, of course.
interact with society as well as ourself, right? So I guess once you realize that, you can open up to being able to stay connected in either place. Okay, let's go back now to a little bit of your shamanic teachings. Give me an idea of what exactly that shamanic teaching did to you. What did you learn before your experience in nature that nature taught you itself? What did you learn from your shamanic teacher?
I think that the main thing, the core thing that happened in shamanic studies is that I learned to calibrate myself on the spiritual frequency. We did it in a lot of ways. We learned how to intentionally dream dreams and how to do dream work and how to interpret dreams. And we learned how to do ceremonies, and we learned how to hold space for people, and we learned the emotional work, and we did elemental work with the fire and the water and the earth and the air. We did all kinds of different works, but the main thing about everything, the connected line between all the practices were that we had to stay calibrated to the spiritual realm in order to do the work properly. We learned
So,
astralic journeys, of course.
so staying connected to the frequency of what you call the spiritual realm, or can we say divinity then, or can we say God then, or what are we staying connected to?
Okay, I think that God is far too general word because everything material is also God.
Right.
Divine, maybe the divine realm, it's okay, but I think that there is a very specific frequency that people call the astral frequency,
Yeah.
which is where I got most of my information.
Right. We used to be called astral connections before metaphysical hub, so I kind of understand what
Okay, yeah. So
you
yeah, this astral connection, this is how I learned to receive the information.
okay.
Um,
So I want to go back here for a second. You said even materiality is God's. Now, if we were to consider the Torah or the Old Testament, would that not disagree with you?
The first phrase of the Torah says, in the beginning, God
It was the
created
word.
heaven and earth.
Yeah.
So it is all God's creation. God is in heaven, God is in earth.
Right.
Every grain of sand, every dollar you pay and earn, this is all God.
I'm glad you
Nothing is too material
clarifying that.
to be God. What?
I'm glad you're clarifying that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, people a lot of times are confused about spiritualism. They think it has nothing to do with the material world, but it's the other way around. The more spiritual you are, the more conscious you are about more aspects of yourself, including the material aspect.
Including the material.
You
And the
go
material,
down and deep into yourself. You go into your guts and you realize all the darkness within you. This is spiritual work.
right. So when you say the darkness within you, so now we're going into a territory that is, well, dark, but a territory that some people might be afraid to go into or feel like it's taboo to go into, and that is the darkness in you. Does everyone has darkness in them because the light can only shine over darkness, correct?
Again, we are used to think about those terms, light and darkness, in spiritual ways, and I really like to talk about them in very physical ways. We all have bellies in the middle of our body, and in these bellies, things happen that we know nothing about. We don't operate our bowels. We don't operate our kidneys. It would be terrible. We would die fast. It all happens without our knowledge, without our awareness. Right. It is the unconscious part of us, very physical, and it happens, and it's a magic. So of course there is darkness. We are only getting light on our skin. Everything inside is dark. Physically dark.
Yes.
And on the spiritual realm, we can only become conscious to a certain part of us. It is very hard to become conscious on how our bones are growing. Yeah, we don't know that. We don't sense that. We don't realize that. But it is happening. It is a process inside us that is happening all the time. We are also not very aware of how our emotions are working, which is more troubling. We find ourselves oftentimes caving to addictions, getting outraged. Our emotions are getting out of control. We shout, we disconnect. A lot of things happen to us that we don't think that we are doing, but it's actually us doing it. We just think it happens to us because we are not aware of the mechanisms.
So let's talk.
This is the darkness inside us.
So let's talk about that now. The darkness inside us, and we use the word addictions. So let's talk a little bit about addictions, whether it's substance, whether it's food, food is a substance, but let's just talk about addictions in general, whatever label you want to give it, right? And how addictions affect us and how they come to be in us and what causes them. And also, like if we talk about the literature, the spiritual literature, whether it's the Quran or the Torah, or there's specific guidelines in regards to substance in all those. And can you talk a little bit on the, in comparison of that versus what actually happens and what the synergy is between that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so there's a lot of things you mentioned, and I will start one by one.
Yes.
So the first thing is we talked about the social constructs we live in, and those social constructs accept some parts of us, especially as young people, as children, as babies. Our caregivers, they accept some parts of us and they like them, and some other parts they reject and they respond negatively to them. And we learn at a very young age to split ourselves in two. Yes,
Right.
we break ourselves in half, and one part we say, this is me, I put it in the light, this is what I reflect, this is what I think of myself. And the
Right.
other part, I just put it in the basement of my life. I ignore it, I suppress it, I disown it, I don't think it is me. And as a young person, when I was smoking, and this therapist who took me to Chinese medicine, he saw me smoking a cigarette, and he said, why do you smoke a cigarette? And I looked at him and I said very intuitively, that's not me who is smoking.
Oh, wow.
I could not identify with the part of me who was smoking, even though I was very aware that I'm smoking. Yes, I knew I'm smoking. It just didn't feel like me. And this was the first time I started to realize how the darkness within me, the suppressed mechanisms are activating me, are working me. So we all have parts that we are disowned, and whenever an emotion inside us arises that pulls this part back to life, we are stressed about it. We feel that we are going to die because the time that we got this imprint was from a person who was responsible for our lives, and if he doesn't approve of us, my father, my mother, I would die. It is really a fear of death that is behind all this suppression, and because of that, I cannot allow myself to feel those feelings.
Right.
There are some feelings I cannot allow myself to feel, and instead I run away. Where do I run? I run somewhere. Usually I run to addictions. I'm used to suppress those feelings that sometimes arise with a cigarette, with a joint, and cannabis, with the alcohol, with sometimes with the coffee, with the sweet cacao treat. Could be with porn or prostitutes when it comes to sexual emotions. In some way, whatever it is, we just don't allow ourselves to feel those feelings. We run away somewhere. And in this way, all addictions are very much alike. There is some trigger, some emotional trigger, some fear of death that we feel because it's a very old and mechanism we got in a very young age.
Right.
And we all have where to run to. We all know how to avoid those feelings. So we keep avoiding them and we keep suppressing them again and again and again. Why it is addictive? Because those feelings doesn't go away. They are still there. And each time the nicotine rush goes away, the feeling comes back and I need another cigarette. Or every time the alcohol starts fading away, the emotions come back. I need another shot. I need another drink.
So let's talk about
this is why it's so
addictive. There's some people who drink alcohol and it doesn't affect them, and there's some people who, well, I'm just using alcohol as an example, but alcohol doesn't affect them, and some people drink alcohol and it does affect them. So it affects their physical demeanor, it affects their physical ability to exist in society, etc., etc. However, even though the outside appears different in these two types of individuals, internally they're having the same experience, correct?
I don't think that every time someone drinks alcohol, it is an addiction or it is a way to avoid emotions. People can, just have fun.
Right.
And those people will not be drinking every day.
Right.
Addicted people, someone who is addicted to alcohol, he will have to drink every day.
Right.
If you have a glass of wine with your Saturday meal with the friends, it's okay. I have nothing against that. But we all have our addictions, and we all have ways to avoid our feelings. And whenever this happens, a few things are happening along the way, which are all negative impacts. The first one is on our body. We usually harm our body in some way. The second one is the emotions. We just don't feel good. If we suppress emotions instead of expressing them, they accumulate in our body. They cause diseases.
Right.
And we don't feel good in the process.
So the disease is even actually an onset of the emotional suppression, not even the alcohol or the substance that you're abusing. It has everything to do with suppressing that emotion, correct?
Accumulation of emotions definitely cause diseases, and abused substance might also cause diseases. They can be the same disease or they can be different diseases.
Okay.
And they usually mild at the beginning. You know, after one night of alcohol, you have a hangover. And after 30 years of alcohol, you have cirrhosis. Your liver is screwed. You have to replace it. But the third effect, which is, in my opinion, the most harmful in addictions, is that our emotions are a compass for us. They tell us how to live. And by suppressing them, we live lives that are not really ours. We lose the connection with the desires of our soul. What are we meant to do on this planet? Why are we here? And what is our path? And we stray from the path. And for me, this is the worst impact of addictions on people.
Let's talk about that a little bit, the path. Why is it so important to know your path? And why is it important not to stray from the path? How does it affect our lives?
Yeah, okay. So you remind me of the Tao Te Ching, the Chinese book I learned in Chinese medicine school.
Yeah.
They talk a lot about the Tao, the way, the path that a man has. So
Islam talks about that too, not straying from the path.
Yeah.
The sweet path, Sirat al-Mustaqim, it's called.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a belief. Not everyone believes it, but it's a belief that we do have a path in life.
Yes.
What is this path? I see it as a responsibility we have to life. We got life. We got a present, which is life here on earth. And we got it in order to help the entire universe live. We are just our life is just a little part of very big movement of life that is happening throughout the universe. It is all evolving all the time. And we are here to help it evolve. And we have to evolve in our own small way in our life. And no one can tell you what is evolving for you and what is not evolving for you. Each one has to find his own path by himself. But the traditions all mark some ways, mark some paths. Yeah, they say you should do this, you should do that. This is a good thing to do. This is not a good thing to do. And it is not right for everyone, but it is a signal that everyone knows that there is a path.
Right.
A lot of people believe that there is a path.
Right.
And everyone who is connected to the spiritual world starts hearing, knowing, sensing, whatever you call it, his path. What is right and what is wrong for me. I have gut feeling, I have intuition. This is part of our human mechanism. What is this intuition? This intuition is the intuition about our path. How should we live? What should we do? Where are my boundaries? What is my desires in life, what is the qualities I bring to this world,
Right.
how should I express them. And the way to live by the path and the way to live by what is convenient are two very different things. Usually living our soul's desire is not an easy thing for us, because it is exactly where we need to go to fix our to heal our wounds and to break our patterns and to really allow ourselves to change during our life from the person we grew up to be as a young adult to the person we are when we leave this world. So you know, and you see that some people just don't change at all. They stick to the same behaviors and they just live their life. And some people, when they face the amazing things in life and the terrible things in life, they see it as a sign and they start to change and they start to evolve and they start to do the internal process, the alchemy of living.
So I often wonder, like, you know, we in our what's the word, united sense, are always striving for peace, for love, for joy, for light, right? Why are we not having that as our base point so that all these things are dealt with, are everything that takes us away from these things, so that we can actually evolve to somewhere greater rather than always struggling to get to peace, to get to love, to get to joy, etc. What is it that we could do differently in our lives so that our base is peace? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I hear you well, and I know what to say. The process is a struggle.
Yes.
No evolving happens when something is static. If we lived a world of total peace, love, and harmony, we would not evolve one bit. We need to feel the pain in order to want the love. We need to feel the fear in order to want the love. And we need to go the path from fear to love, from pain to joy, from disconnection to connection. And this is the way we evolve, by walking. It is like the processes in the core of the earth. You have to have stress, you have to have heat in order to make the changes, for the molecules to move, for the processes to happen. You have to have conflict.
Right.
It is not a punishment. It is a gift for us.
Nature.
It helps us. It helps us. It shows us the way. The conflict, the pain, the fear, they are all guides for us in our life.
Like a litmus test, right?
Yeah. We need to stop struggling with them and accept their guidance.
Right.
And keep walking in the way that we should. And we will never reach a place of total peace, love, and harmony. You know, we will reach it when we leave the body and our soul goes back to the heavens. This is what heavens is about. There is nothing else in heavens. There is light and music and geometric shapes. This is all that exists in heavens, and we will go back there and we will live this fantastic harmony after we finish our life here and before we go again and again to the next life.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our path there. We talked a little bit about our path there, but this idea of disease, okay, that forms in the body, and the emotions and how they affect the disease. What can we do? You've studied Chinese medicine, you've studied shamanism, you've studied and lived in nature. What do you think is a message you can give this audience to ensure that how they live doesn't ever get to a point of disease? And first of all, is that possible? And if it is possible, what is the prescription to ensure that?
Yeah,
Physical.
you know, I met one time a Qigong teacher, Chinese person, 80 years old. He looked so well. He looked much better than I at that time. I was 30, and he looks looked much better than I was. So I do believe in reducing pain and reducing disease. I don't think it will ever go away. Our bodies are meant to grow and to old and to age and to die. This is part of the process. We can die, you know, with good health or with bad health.
Well, whether
And
what's happening inside is good or bad, the only time we ever react is when we're in pain, right? Because
so I
ultimately
guess
the
this is
processes
the
inside, ultimately the process inside, we don't know what's happening. The only time we react is when we're in pain.
so I guess this is the message I want to give to the audience. Don't wait to the pain.
Yes.
Be mindful about what is good for you, what is really good for you, and treat yourself well every time, every day, even when you are feeling well, especially when you are feeling well. Rejoice the good feeling and keep nurturing yourself, your body, and your soul. Don't neglect yourself until you feel the pain. This is too late.
Right. So feeling good can eradicate the pain, correct? It can overlap it.
You know, you are either in pain or in joy, you know. Uh, mm,
You know, they say laughing
pain
is a
keeps
medicine. Laughing is the best medicine, they say, right?
Yes, it is a good medicine. You need to know how to balance your body, how to balance your hormones, how to live your day. You have to have good routine. Yes, definitely. All those things are important. Good nutrition and practice, and friends and laughter, and making laugh, and being in nature, and water
And
is
even
an
working
amazing
and
medicine.
enjoying what you do, right?
Walking is fantastic, definitely. But if you walk and enjoy what you do and you sit in front of your computer 12 hours a day,
Right,
it might not be a balanced situation.
right, right. And it's all about balance, right? It's all about balance. Now you brought up the heavens
Yeah,
and the idea of heavens, and you brought up that that's what all that is, the peace, the love, the joy, etc. Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
what we're struggling to get to for some reason,
Yes, definitely.
right? So this heavenly reality can be here and now, correct?
This heavenly reality is here and now always.
Is here and now,
And yeah, and we all we need to do is realize it.
right? So
The
really,
thing, the reason we want to expand our consciousness is, for one thing, to realize heavens, to expand our consciousness upwards, to be connected to the heavens and to feel the love and to feel the light every day and every minute. And also we want to expand our consciousness downwards into the body, into the cells, into the darkness, and realize the strengths that exist there and learn how to live in a physical body.
right. So this
So
idea of looking for
consciousness
light,
expansion goes both ways.
so this idea of looking for light in the darkness, many people go inside to be enlightened per se, right?
Yes.
But enlightenment can only comes from going inside the dark, correct?
Enlightenment is the situation of shedding light in dark places.
Right.
This is focusing our awareness to places that it was not focused on before.
So expand on that a little bit. How would one do that?
This takes me back to the talk about addictions. So we have an automatic response to avoid feelings. And the way we shed light into the dark is when we have this response, first to realize this is what is happening, and then to allow ourselves to feel the feelings. Send the feelings, all the world of feelings is resembles water. It is like the mother in us.
Right.
And the consciousness is like the father in us.
Right.
And we want to allow them to become together, to have a good relationship, to become a family, our internal family, and to give birth to our internal life. We want the consciousness to be able to see the emotions. So this is the process of shedding light in the darkness, to sit there and see the emotions. Oh, I am sad. Oh, I'm so sad. Wow, I'm just crying. And I still sit here and I'm still aware. I don't cave into myself and lie on the floor and sob. I sit there and allow my tears to go down and feel immense sadness in my heart and still be present with it.
Right.
And the same with anger, and the same with fear, and the same with all our emotions.
So it's also true that all these emotions are related to the organs in our body, that these emotions end up in these organs, affecting these organs, and different
Yeah,
emotions
they
affect
they
different
rise up from
organs.
the organs. Mm-hmm.
They what?
Yeah, they are born in the organs, and they are
Right.
expressed in the organs, and they sit in those organs, and the way to give health to the organs is
Right.
to clear the emotions from them,
So if
to
those
allow the
emotions,
full flow of the emotions.
so if those emotions are cleared in that organ, if those emotions are expressed when the organ is suffering, is there the possibility, let's call it a possibility for now, for that organ to heal? And if so,
Oh, definitely.
how rapidly can it heal?
Oh, very fast.
Exactly.
Yeah, the the organ might not totally regenerate very fast. It takes time to the material to work. But as soon as you switch from hurting the organ to healing the organ, the change in the energy happens very, very fast.
Now I have
When
another
you
question.
allow yourself, I will expand one more sentence on that.
Yes.
When you allow yourself to cry instead of smoking tobacco, you are healed already.
Right. Okay.
And it's the
Another.
same for all addictions. All addictions, each one hurt a different organ. And as soon as you stop hurting the organ, healing starts.
So talk about the different organs and the different emotions. Can you talk about those? Which organ
Yeah,
associated
of
with
course.
which organ?
Yeah, I'll talk about the associations from the Chinese medicine. So in the lungs, we have sadness and sorrow. And I think this is one of the main reasons people smoke. It is to give more heat to the lungs and ease our sorrow, our loneliness. In the liver, we have the anger. So alcohol is the anger and gives us relief from the anger, and it hurts the liver. And in the kidneys, we have fear. Our
Fear.
fears sit in the kidney. Yes, yes. Um,
And so what addiction affects the kidney?
mm, I'm not sure how to say it like that. Too much salt
Too much
affects
salt.
the kidneys, and most of us are addicted to salt.
Okay.
So this is one way that, but no, I'm not sure about which addiction is connected to the kidneys directly. The
The liver, you
spleen,
mentioned alcohol, but it could be others too, right?
yeah. Also, I think that liver and anger are related to cannabis addictions because it's a calming effect.
Okay.
But this also affects the spleen. The spleen is the organ that holds the busy mind,
Right.
the worries, and the overthinking.
Okay.
And so I think cannabis also affects the spleen.
Right.
I think maybe about the kidneys. The kidneys is related to the reproduction system,
Oh,
to the
okay.
sex organs. I think maybe porn addictions and masturbation addictions are related to the kidneys. Also, it's interesting that, porn addictions are not really about sex, but more about the feelings we have around sex. For
Right.
men, it's mainly the fear of rejection
Right.
and the fear of performance, some fears related to sexual activity.
Right. Amazing.
And
Interesting.
porn really resolves those fears, because you are never rejected when you watch porn, and you are never expected to perform in any way when you are masturbating in front of porn.
Right.
Yeah.
What about things related to blood and blood cancer or leukemia or things like that?
Mm. The emotion that sits in the heart is joy, happiness.
Right.
So I think that the more common imbalance related to the heart that I see in Western society is people that are just not happy.
Hmm.
You see people walking, I don't know, like living dead. They don't really have any satisfaction from the daily life.
Right.
And I think that this situation really harms the heart, and might be related to addiction to harder substances like maybe MDMA and cocaine,
Okay.
just make you feel good with yourself.
Right. So because you don't feel good with yourself, then you would take those substances.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so now
could be.
let's talk about the individuals who don't gravitate to the addictions because of their fear of God, because God said not to do drugs, not to do substance abuse, etc. So they'll avoid it like the plague, but
Yeah, definitely.
they'll still experience these emotions.
They will experience the emotions and they will have their own ways. Sometimes it is to avoid them. I see religious people, they just pray.
Yes.
Yeah, you take your mind off what is happening with you by doing some activity, and it could be
Right.
play.
Right.
But they
Right.
also when I see it, that they don't run from their emotions.
Yeah.
Some people are not addicted; they have weaker mechanisms in them, and they just allow themselves to feel. It is more natural to them to feel. It is very related to how you were grown as a small child.
Right.
Some people just, their parents allowed them to express their feelings, and they still do it today, and they are less prone to addictions.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Okay, this is very fascinating information.
Yeah, thank you
And
very much.
they probably attract individuals into their lives that fit their framework at this time as well. People who are in a similar state that they are as well, correct?
Definitely, definitely. I went through a major cleanup like this year, like 6 months ago. I was most of my life, I was addicted to all kinds of things. And as soon as I got cleaned, my social circle just changed
Of course, yeah.
because I don't like to sit with people who smoke and drink anymore.
Right.
I
Yeah.
I still get triggered by those activities. It doesn't feel well to me, but I also like to meet people that are that allow themselves to feel their
Right.
feelings. It's
Right.
a new thing for me, and it really changed my social circle. I had to let go of some friends and acquire some new ones.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about this idea of we're all one, right? So everyone we interact with
Okay.
is we're all one.
Yes, yes.
So everyone we interact with is a mirror of ourselves.
Hmm. Yes, yes, in a way. Um, we are open systems. Humans
Yes.
are open systems. So
Yes.
whatever happens inside us happens outside us. Whatever happens outside us happens inside us.
Right.
It's a bit different than everyone is a mirror for ourselves, because sometimes we just meet people, you know.
Right. But how did those interactions ever happen? Because I mean, meeting a new person and those synchronicities to take place for you to meet someone, I mean, a million billiard balls had to have been placed in the exact position for that to happen. And then for that to happen,
Yeah,
like
sometimes.
in your case, for example, the I Ching teacher, the shamanic teacher, the experiences you had in nature, for those experiences to line up, something had to have happened that's outside of you to cause those.
Yes, definitely. All my life circumstances caused that.
Yeah.
But you know, I also meet some cashier to the supermarket. I went to buy food. Why did I meet her and not someone else? But nothing
Yeah.
happened with us, you know. I just tested the ingredients and she made me the bill and I just went on. Is that a special synchronicity in my life? I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know either.
Not
These are
not not
interesting.
every
These are
experience
interesting.
is very meaningful one.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe not meaningful, but there was probably some reason, something that created that, you
Yeah,
know?
definitely. We exchange energies. I was there, she was there. We
Yeah.
were in some connection for a moment. We exchanged some energies,
Yeah.
and we went on our way. And it
Because
happens
like
all the time
attracts, right?
with everyone. What?
Because like attracts like, right? Like there
Yes,
has to be
yes.
something.
Doesn't not necessarily. I don't know if we're likes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do know that it's a very good spiritual practice whenever we think that something happened outside us to try to see how it feels, how it meets us inside.
Yes.
Uh, and especially when we feel the need to blame someone else for what happens to us.
Yes.
This is the perfect cue for us to look inside and realize our place in the dynamic, in the situation,
Yes.
how we got to this place, what could we do different, what do we need to learn. So there
To
are very meaningful meetings, encounters, interactions that we can learn a lot from. And it's also related to the rest of the conversation, because the way we recognize those moments is the emotional trigger.
Right.
We meet someone and something happens to our emotions, and
Yeah.
suddenly we are very angry, or suddenly we are very sad, or suddenly we are very happy.
Yes.
And we need to ask ourselves, what is happening right now?
Right.
It is not something that someone did to me. It is something that is expressed also from my
Right.
interior.
Right. Right. And we actually tend to know that, especially when we feel happy, right? Somehow, some way, some reason, this individual or this item even brought happiness inside me.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
I can go on asking
Relationships.
you questions forever, actually, because the
Yeah, for
connection
sure.
is so beautiful here. But at some point, we have to stop and maybe do another session. Tell us a little bit about you now, how people can find you, what you can do for them, and um, and we'll let them know.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. So
Absolutely.
today I focus on working with people to release and clean addictions. I have a process called Free and Clean. It's a 7-meeting process. It includes working with all levels, from prescribing the right herbs and nutrition, and doing the emotional work and the energetic work and the spiritual work related to specific addictions. And where can they reach me? I would say on Facebook and WhatsApp, and maybe I'll send you later the
Yeah,
links.
please, and I will add it to the video for you.
Excellent,
Create a profile
excellent.
for you on our hub as well.
Yes, sure.
It's
So
not our hub isn't the biggest thing out there, of course, because nobody really knows about it. But you will get some views, and they're loyal views. And if you help spread the word too, then the
yeah,
the word
yeah,
will get
sure.
out.
I would love to meet people who heard this conversation. It was really interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. It was very interesting. I really enjoyed meeting you, and thank you to Shlomo for creating this interaction. I'm working on a book too right now that I'm gonna ask your help for to give some guidance in the aspect of certain topics of emotional health. And so I'll get your feedback in there and use you as a consultant. I think you'd be very good for what I'm trying to portray. So
I would love that. Thank you very much for having me, Cheryl. It
thank
was a
you,
great
Benjamin.
pleasure.
It was a pleasure meeting you. I really loved meeting
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
thank you.